if you put in an open request for specific documents and it's not available, then what happens? If you know that the public entity should have these records, but then they respond to your open request and say that they don't have it, then what happens?
Well, that's one of the big exceptions to getting a record, and it can get a little tricky. But unfortunately, if a records custodian doesn't have the record you want, even if it's for a bad reason, well, what's a bad reason? The dog ate it, it got burned in the fire, lost in the flood. They destroyed it without authorization. You know, they can't. Public agency can't destroy any record without authorization from headquarters. When I say headquarters, I mean the Division of Archives and Records Manager. They literally have to get permission to destroy the records. So even if they didn't follow those rules, they may have violated the law, but unfortunately, if the record doesn't exist, they're not obligated to create it, and they're not obligated to somehow recreate it. It's a sufficient answer to say the record doesn't exist. Now, the trickier question is, you want a certain type of record, and maybe that specific record doesn't exist, but maybe the information is elsewhere. A good clerk will say, look, you asked me for this. I don't have anything called this, but I think what you're really looking for is over here, so let me give that to you. Some folks will do that, because in the long run, it's easier. Because if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you're going to make a request, then you're going to make another one, then you're going to make another one. So in my view, the clerk's actually saving herself work. I say herself because most of them are women, but himself or herself. She's saving herself work, because now you don't have to make all those follow-up OPRA requests. But to answer your question directly, if the record doesn't exist, they can say that, and they can close it. Yes?
Have you ever had a case where they said they don't have the record, but they do?
Well, sure. And that gets tricky, because then you sort of, I don't want to say it's not quite as hard as having to prove a negative, but you know we're generally outsiders, and I can tell you when I win those types of cases, I've only had a handful, maybe I've had like 2 or 3. The client is either an insider, like maybe they work for the public agency, or the client has contacts inside, and the client has people telling them, look for this, look for that, ask for this, ask for that. And you know, so far the judges haven't, the few times it's happened, I'll get an order for disclosure, but the judges haven't punished, at least not in my cases. One example is, it happened in Rockaway. We asked for towing reports, and they swore up and down that no towing reports existed, and the client knew they were there. And eventually the attorneys for the other side, so whatever, my client kept making OPRA requests, and it sort of forced them to search. And eventually they found the towing reports. They produced them, and we actually made a motion for attorney's fees under OPRA. We won. We argued that they should have been penalized under OPRA. We argued that they were lying, but the judge didn't. The judge didn't believe them. The judge gave them the benefit of the doubt, which I understand. Judges do generally give people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes I'm the person who gets that benefit.